Welcome to the Entrepreneur Show. This is your host, Michael Mara. I'm the CEO and founder of Entre, a social network for entrepreneurs, investors, and freelancers. On this show, we interview the top CEOs, venture capitalists, angel investors, and founders. Connect with me and thousands of other like-minded people by signing up for free at joinentre.com or download our mobile app on iOS and Android. On this episode, I'm interviewing Simon Squibb. He's an entrepreneur, angel investor, mentor, podcast host, founder, and chief purpose officer at the Purposeful Project. He started 18 companies. He's invested in over 60 plus startups. He's mentored hundreds of entrepreneurs, having sold his award-winning branding and digital agency Fluid to PwC. Simon now focuses on inspiring, motivating, and guiding both budding and experienced entrepreneurs by sharing his experiences, insights, ideas, and tips. I hope you enjoy this episode. All right, welcome back. I have a very special guest today, Simon Squibb. Welcome to the show.
Absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I before we press record here, we were talking and we had a previous conversation, a few weeks back, and just absolutely loved your story. And you've done so much over your career, starting companies, investing in companies, and giving back to the entrepreneurial community. So I wanted to first start by saying thank you for that, because that's a huge part of all of this, and that's what helps entrepreneurs really grow is having the older, more experienced entrepreneurs give back and support them and mentor them along the way. So appreciate you for doing that for the community for sure.
Yeah, thanks very much. Well, anyone that's ever, mentored or even invested in a business will know you get a lot more back than you put in. Mentoring is just so rewarding when you see someone grow and build something meaningful. It's such a great thing. So it's quite a selfish endeavor in many respects.
Yeah, no, it is wild, because I don't think there's anything better than helping someone start a business too, because they're really controlling their own destiny, and it's incredibly empowering to see that and to help someone achieve that. But I want to kick things off here with you sharing a little bit about the beginning, because a lot of our audience are earlier stage entrepreneurs, or they're just starting out, or maybe they're trying to get into this and break out of their corporate career and whatnot. How did you get into entrepreneurship, and why did you get into entrepreneurship?
Well, I got into entrepreneurship at 15 years old. I had a dramatic life experience at 15. My life completely changed. My father suddenly passed away at 56 years old of a heart attack. And I kind of reviewed, why suddenly had my father gone. And I had a story in my head about how, frankly, he had started working for himself too late in life. And that in a way, that the stress of starting his own business later in his life had in part led to his early death. And I remember having a conversation with my mum about this, and we basically had a massive argument around this and a few other things. And my mum said, well, you do it my way or get out of my house. So I got out of her house and found myself homeless. And for 5 days, I actually slept on the streets. And then, ironically, through a contact of my mother's, I found what was pretty much a squat to live in. And at that moment, the squat that I was living in actually still charged rent. It was about £30 for a week in this squat, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's an awful lot of money when you don't have any money. And I basically suddenly realized that I needed to earn money. And this concept of earning money hadn't been something alien to me, but entrepreneurship had. And I didn't think I was an entrepreneur. I can remember about 14 years old, someone asking me, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a lawyer. Now, I realize now that was pre-programming by my parents, that they wanted me to be a lawyer. And so therefore I translated my skill set into I'm going to be a lawyer. But suddenly thrust into the real world, having to survive, something woke up in my brain. And I think I always describe it as an entrepreneurial muscle that I hadn't really used before properly. And so I basically was activated by the very need of, like, I need food and I need to pay rent, otherwise I'm going to be back on the street. And the last 5 days were awful. I don't want that to happen. So as I was walking around the area that I was now living in, which was Cambridge in England, in Cambridge is a very interesting place because it's got students with no money but at very expensive schools, all the way through to, of course, a lot of very wealthy people. And I was walking down the street wondering, what is my purpose in life? How am I gonna make a living? And I saw a house, this massive house in Cambridge that had this massive garden. The garden was so massive. And what went through my brain was simply, why does someone with a massive house, clearly have money, have such a messy garden? So I just thought to myself, maybe I should just knock on the door and ask if they would like me to take care of their garden. They could pay me to do it. And that's what I did. I knocked on the door of the house and said, hey, my name's Simon Squibb. I've got a gardening company. Would you like me to take care of your garden for you? And to my surprise, the person said yes straight away. And I said, oh, great. And they said, how much do you charge? And I just picked a number out of the air, £200 a month. And they said, sure, that's great. And as I walked down the path, I thought to myself, wow, this is amazing. I wonder how many other people want a service like this. So I then went and knocked on the next door's house, which also had a kind of messy garden, not as bad, and said kind of the same thing. But this time the answer was different. They said, no, sorry, so, okay, I've got a garden already. And I said, well, the garden's actually quite messy. You sure you don't want someone else to create some competition for that gardener? And they said, yeah, good point. They are a bit lazy. They don't have any competition. How much do you charge? So I just picked the same rate in my head initially I just charged a second ago. But before saying it, I said to this guy, well, how much is your present gardener charging you? And they said £350 a month. And at that point, I realized why the guy previous had snatched my hand off at 200. And I said, well, actually, I'll charge you 300. I'll give you, so it's £50 off what you're paying right now. Give me a go. And we both win if it works out. But basically, I then knocked on 110 houses, the doors that day, and managed to get 11 people to say yes.
Wow. In one day?
In one day.
Wow.
And then as I got back home to my squat, one of the other people in the house, I can remember it like it was yesterday, as I was eating my soup and proud of myself having done all this, they said, well, you don't have any equipment, Simon. How are you going to get the equipment to do this work? So I had a brainwave of going back on the Sunday, the following day. I knocked on all 11 houses again, this time with a rubbish little contract on a bit of paper saying, this is what I'm going to do for you. And then I asked each of those people if they'd give me a 50% deposit. And to my surprise, they did. They gave me the cash there and then. And so, this is back when cash was more used, of course. People had cash in their homes, not so perhaps these days. And I was kind of shocked that people would trust me. I didn't have a registered company. Clearly, of course, I didn't have a website, no fancy brochure. I'd figured out price discovery. I'd figured out the market, and I'd managed to get 11 clients. And I took the deposit money and went on the Monday and bought all the equipment. By the following Saturday, I started to do the gardens, only to realize it was way too much work for one human being to do on their own. So I went back to the squat and said, hey guys, you want some weekend work? Within 3 weeks, I had 20 contracts confirmed. I got from 11 to 20. I had 4 people working for me, and I owned 3 lawnmowers. So that's
incredible.
My first business.
That's incredible. That's so funny. And it is funny too, because a lot of people, they like the grass cutting and, gardening is usually one of the first ways. I mean, I had a little business when I was growing up doing that, and it does teach you those things. But you mentioned a few things there that are extremely important. Number one, you went up to the house without even having a business, but you just said that you did, right? And you showed confidence, and you looked like, or maybe you didn't look the part, but you at least acted like you had the company and you knew what you were doing and you've already done it before, right? So I think that confidence is key. And then the second time you learned that you shouldn't be the first one to ask the offer, which I think is another extremely good point, because a lot of people leave money on the table by just telling people what their cost is, rather than asking them what their budget is or what their previous person paid, which what you did. And so I love that. I think those are 2 things. And then obviously just the hustle, right? And rolling with something that works, right? And once you have that momentum, not giving up on that. I think a lot of people will try things and, go to a few houses and maybe not, get anything, and give up and not make it work. But that's honestly a fantastic story to kick things off. So how did you? Go ahead.
To interrupt you. No, I just think I appreciate the kind words. As I reflected on this over the years, there's a couple of things as well I think they're important. I find that when people pitch businesses today, a lot of the time, the gardening company pitch would be more like, right, okay, we've got this gardening company idea, and what we need to do is we need to get a marketing team on board to do the social media posting. And then what we need is a nice brochure. We need to get a website done. And then we'd buy this equipment. We've scoped it all out. And this is what we need to get. And sometimes there's an over-engineering of the idea. And funnily enough, someone did come to the market and compete with me. And they had a lot of funding, but they lost. So, I always say, as an investor, I feel like I can almost put down sometimes that you don't always need an investor. They lost because I already had the relationship with the clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so all the money, all the fancy lawnmowers and websites and brochures, it could never easily affect what I'd already built.
100%.
And so that's one thing. And I guess the other thing as well is that I do believe with all my heart that the key to being successful in business is needing to be successful in business. Mm. I had nothing to lose, but I risked it all. And like you say, I think knocking on those doors at the time, I didn't really have a choice. I wouldn't say I was brave. I had no choice. But now when I build businesses, frankly, I'm all in. I completely commit to that business, whether it's investing in it or whether it's starting one myself. And I think that remembering that kind of, I've got no other option. They call it burning the boats, right? The Vikings call it burning the boats. Making sure you kind of got no choice but to make what you presently got work. Because if at any point in that cycle of building that gardening company, I'd had an easy life to go back to, I probably would have done it. It was hard work. It was never easy.
Yeah, there's a book Damon John wrote, the Shark Tank investor, called The Power of Broke. And it's that same thing. You value it so much more having lived that experience. And similarly with myself, right? Like I know what it's like to start a company with nothing, like zero, right? So I'm not afraid of that. I don't care. I know that, worst case scenario, that's what's going to happen. I've already gone through that. I know how to build things back up from that, and I can always do something to figure things out. That's why no matter what, I'm going to continue building what I'm building now because I'm obsessed with it, and it's 100%. There's nothing else that I want to do, and that relentlessness. But I think there's so much, inherent desire in when you are broke and have nothing, just that want, and you're constantly thinking about, I want money, I want to be successful. And if you don't have that and you have a fallback, it might prevent you from, achieving that with the same passion that someone who is broke will. I think that's what you're getting at too.
Yeah. Well, I think the evolution is it's really mindset, isn't it? I mean, broke don't actually have to be broke, but I always love the Steve Jobs, point he always made, that when he first made a lot of money from Apple, a lot of his colleagues started acting like they had a lot of money. He didn't really change much. He didn't really think he had money because it was never about the money anyway. And I think if you speak to any successful entrepreneur, it sounds cheesy and cliche, but most of the time they're successful. I know a few people that became millionaires and didn't even realize it. I did realize it when I became a millionaire, but I think, I can see why that can happen. You can kind of just keep pushing what you're doing and just focus so purely on it that the money almost becomes, it's all about cash flow, really. That's the only thing I think I ever really worried about in my business was cash flow. It was never really about my own personal wealth. Interesting.
Yeah, for me, it's freedom, being able to do whatever I want, whenever I want, where and with who. And that freedom comes with you being able to have what is money, to have the resource to do whatever you want, right? So that's inherently what drives me. I'm curious what now, after you kind of started, this lawn care business and moving forward, how did you get into now these larger businesses in tech I know you've done stuff in China. How did you then grow after building this, local business, let's say, to then a larger enterprise business? How did you make that shift then? Because a lot of people may have a small business or something like that, but may not understand how to get it to that multi-millions or hundreds of millions or billion-dollar level of enterprise.
Yeah, it's a good question, really. I often reflect on my own journey, and I think it comes down, in my view, to two things. One is luck. I think a huge part of what happens in life is luck. I know for a lot of people, when they hear that word, they're like, oh no, the harder you work, the luckier you get, and sayings like that. But 9 times out of 10, the harder you work, the sicker you get. But a big part of it is luck. And then I think another element is, and it might sound a bit cheesy, but there's an element of destiny. And I think that sometimes, a bit like the gardening story I just explained, people overthink when they engineer a business. And sometimes people overthink when engineering their life. And I think they don't look up enough from their phones these days, but in general, don't look up enough and see the opportunity walking right by them. I saw an advert for, trying to convince people to stop looking at their phones so much. And basically the love of your life, the person that was going to make you the happiest that you could ever possibly be, just walked by you as you were staring into your phone looking for happiness. And so I think for me, I never built any business, including my gardening company, to go away and end up with $1 billion enterprise. I always built these things for exactly the reasons that you just talked about. I wanted to be free from control of my mother initially, all the way through to just genuinely realizing how powerful and valuable free is. So I always wanted these businesses to work, so I didn't have to go ask someone for a job. And I think, and then eventually, as I got good at being an entrepreneur and I understood the nuances of it, I think I began to find it interesting to kind of build out this model of buying time, not selling time. And so when you're building a business yourself, initially, I think a lot of people sell time. They sell their own time initially. And I think I was quite lucky that I had no skills. I had no ability to actually take care of someone's garden. I'm not built to do it. I'm just not good at that stuff. I've got soft hands. And so, I had to hire people that had that skill, that had the hard hand ability to take care of someone's garden. And so and every single business I've ever built, frankly, I've always ended up hiring the people that actually do the talented bit. One of my last companies, Fluid, which I sold to PwC, and I often joke, for more money than I'll ever need, to kind of highlight the value of it. The company itself was a creative agency. And that business was full of talented people. I was not one of them. I was just the owner. And so I actually ended up marrying the head of the creative at that company. She's so talented, Helen Griffiths. But my skill was always, I think, in basically seeing the opportunity, hiring the right people to then take care of that opportunity, and then having vision for the business that was beyond just making money. And so yeah.
You said so much there, that I think is really interesting. Talking about destiny, right? I think another word you could say for that is, really just inherent belief in yourself, right? And I think no one will be a millionaire or billionaire unless they actually believe they can be a millionaire or billionaire. And to the point about mindset and destiny and all of this, what you mentioned, that to me is one thing that I've noticed interviewing, working with, talking to successful entrepreneurs like yourself and investors, and they were the ones who actually believed they could do it. And I think a lot of people and kids, their beliefs get crushed very early on. So then what they envision as their destiny changes at a very early age to an I would say an average or below average destiny, because of simply their belief in themselves. And to get to something we'll talk about later, which I know you're very involved in, which is this word passion, right? And uncovering that in purpose. Because if you don't have purpose, in my opinion, that's one of the first things you have to get on your correct path to success, for whatever that means for you, because it's different for every person. But let's talk a little bit about business first, and then let's get back to purpose in a little bit. You mentioned seeing the opportunity, hiring talented people in the vision, right? And how you realize that selling time is not the necessarily scalable and not the best way for you to be successful, right? Everyone's a little different. Everyone has different skill sets. But I think most CEOs need to have the three skill sets that you mentioned, which would be opportunistic, hire the right people, and be a visionary and see trends and where the future is going. So I'd love for you to dive into all three of those, or in whatever order, a little bit deeper, if you could shed some light into how you approach those, or any advice that you have for young CEOs or founders, even older founders, to understand that, because I think those three things are vital to having a sustainable business over the long term.
Well, I think I first of all say that I see online people selling courses trying to teach these things, and I see a lot of people preach that these things can be taught out of a book or in a business MBA, for example, and they really can't be, because how you interact with people will make a difference about how you recruit people. And so you've got to learn to leverage your abilities. So, for example, I know people that are not very good at talking to people, but they need to hire people. So they end up hiring someone that can hire people. And I think you don't need to know all of these things. I mean, even the word purpose, which, I have a project called the Purposeful Project, where our whole platform is there to help people start and grow a business. And I'm very much about purpose. But when I was 15, I was very much about just eating, just making the rent, so I wasn't sleeping on the street again, And I sometimes think this word purpose, first of all, I'm always in admiration of younger people, and I want to say you, I know you're not super young, but young people like yourself who have even got this word in your vocabulary, because I didn't at 15 years old. I was just about survival, and maybe there was an element of I didn't want to be controlled by my mum, and I wanted to kind of live a different life to the one that my father had led. It led him to die early, and I felt like it wasn't a purpose as such; it was survival. But I think through survival came my skill set. I developed myself, my sales skill, for example. No one trained me in sales. I just knocked on doors and got told yes and no and learned from it. And I don't think you can get that from a book. Now, I've just done a 6-minute video on it and put it on my YouTube. Now, that might be useful as tips, but you're still going to need to go and follow up and connect with people and so on. So on the vision side, that's an interesting one. I think vision is something, the way I would spark vision in people is to think about what matters to you personally. A lot of the time people will pitch a business to me and they'll say, Simon, this business is filling a market gap and this is the market gap. And the question I always want to know is that market gap important to you? Because if it's not, you won't win. And so, I've seen a lot of businesses that are filling market gaps that don't win, but I've seen a lot of businesses that are passion projects that aren't necessarily filling a market gap, but are so personal to the person that's actually developing the business, they often win. So even for me, I don't think I'm filling a market gap. I'm not building a platform to help people start a business to fill a market gap. There's plenty of people do it, including job centers and, government organizations. But I just don't feel like anyone does it from an entrepreneurial angle. A lot of the time, there is a platform out there in England, for example, the job centers, where you can go there and they'll help you find a job. But there isn't a platform to help you become an entrepreneur without massive MBA costs and teach you the basics of entrepreneurship and wake that muscle up in your head that was woken up in mine. And so I just feel like, that vision, however, that vision that I've got today for my business today, what was a journey. I had to start a business at 15, find it painful, do it on my own, learn everything, Then started a business where I helped people, but they paid me. So I had this agency, Fluid, and we used to help startups, but they'd pay us. And eventually we took equity instead of payment. But I had, now I help people with no expectation of equity or payment. But I had to go through those stages to get to where I am today. So again, it's patience. I think that's another word I like a lot, and I feel like I say it these days, and somehow Gary Vee owns the word because he said it a few times. But patience is a word I've always used when building out businesses myself. It's not an overnight success thing. And also, as you're developing the business, you can install purpose in it over time. My agency business, for example, Fluid, when I launched that business, initially we want to be the best creative and marketing agency combo in the world, right? That was our original thesis. And we felt that people did wonderful creative or they did a great marketing, but they never combined the two. They were always separate things somehow. Your marketing plan and your creative plan were not the same thing. So we built a company called Fluid, which PwC will go on to buy on that thesis. However, as we built out the business, our biggest problem was not winning clients. Our biggest problem was retaining talent. So we actually changed the focus of the business, and we made the purpose of the business to defend and protect and enhance the creative world's understanding of creative people. And so when someone hires a creative agency, they're often like, can you do my logo for me by tomorrow at 12? And a designer often feels they're under pressure to deliver that to their client, and they feel pain, and they don't like the creative process suddenly because it's on a clock. And that's not what they got into the business for. They like creating, and suddenly they've got to have it ready by 12 tomorrow. And so we became really the buffer between the expectations of people that didn't understand marketing and creative and the creatives. And so that was not the original business plan. And so what I'm trying to demonstrate here is, when hiring people, you end up hopefully understanding who they are. By understanding who they are, you can often end up creating vision and mission, because what matters to those people will probably, what matters to you will probably what keeps you all in that business. So all of these things are interlinked, and a lot of them take, I feel like, life experiences, often bad ones too, to bring it out in you and give you the drive to really care about what you're doing.
Wow. You're dropping some serious gems here, man. This is great stuff. And you mentioned patience, which it's one of these things that it's so hard as an entrepreneur to practice patience. And if there's anything I learned, being an entrepreneur now for 5-6 years, it's just that. When I first started, I wanted to do a million things. I expected things to happen like so fast, and it just doesn't work that way. Like, and if it does, chances are you're probably not going to sustain that, because it's going to be easy come, easy go. If you want to do anything big, it's going to take time, and you're going to have to be patient with it. And I think that hits on your other point there, where you invest and you like working with entrepreneurs that really are passionate, and they're solving the problem that they want to solve. Because to get through all the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, because there's a lot, and it's part of the reason why our logo is the N, because it represents the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. But you can have great news and bad news in just one morning of 1 week, and it's a roller coaster. And the only way to get through that is to be sincerely and deeply passionate and obsessed about the problem and what you're doing with your time and in your work. Because if you're not, any one of those downturns, any one of those bad days, any one of those bad phone calls or bad emails, you're gonna quit, you're gonna go back, you're not gonna want to try to figure out how to pivot or adapt to the market. Or when coronavirus comes, you're gonna say it was because of that, and you're not gonna try to figure out a way to, go online with your business or something like that. And I think that's just such an important point to make. And reiterate what you said there about that. I know you brought up Fluid and eventually selling to PwC. So I think it'd be helpful to share what that process was like too, about selling a business, because that's what a lot of entrepreneurs are looking for as they start. They want, some sort of exit event. And I didn't realize at the beginning because I started my company for, a different purpose. But as I've, grown now, I realize that most people start companies to sell them. That was not how I started my business. But now understanding startups and technology and stuff, the majority of people start businesses to sell them. So how did that happen? Were you planning to sell your business? Was that something that happened out of the blue? Were you preparing for that? And do you have any advice for people who maybe are in a position and looking to sell their business, how they should be approaching it?
First tip I'll say is that one of the pet peeves that behind the scenes investors talk about when people pitch their businesses is the exit slide. Do not put an exit slide on your pitch deck. And there's a couple of reasons why. I think, and I can just draw my own personal experience of what I've seen. As I say, when an entrepreneur leaves the room and what investors talk about, the dedication to the business is important. Now, exit might be what you think the investors want to hear, but what the investors often want to hear, good ones in my view, is that you're passionate about this business and you're going to make it work. Let's call it the Mark Zuckerberg effect. He doesn't want to leave the business. He wants to take it all the way, right? And if you leave the business, you end up with Yahoo. It's important to be passionate and want to stay in the business. And if you ask me, and it's a very personal opinion, and so I hope I don't offend anyone, but I think there is a new wave of people getting involved in entrepreneurship and startups that are coming at it from the numbers. And they are saying, I'm building this business to make money. I don't think they actually succeed very often. If you think about anybody that, you think top 5 people that come to mind when you think of successful entrepreneurs, the Jeff Bezos, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Google founders, Elon Musk, these guys are all still at the helm of their businesses. They're still heavily involved. And so I really don't think that exit is the right way. And I think and I'll tell you about my exit as a good example. And I think if you want to exit a business, the best thing you can do is not want to exit that business.
100%.
There's the irony.
Yes.
And so, and I think and I've seen it where people have got 3 years in and they thought they'd have an exit. And they're like, shit, this is hard. And I don't even like this business. I thought I'd have an exit by now. And so, and I've seen businesses fold because people just have options, or they're lazy, or they didn't really get into it loving it. They got into it because they thought we're going to get an exit. Now, my agency business, Fluid, don't get me wrong, we've all had highs and lows in any business. I don't want to tell you that every single day was perfect, but I really enjoyed that business. And what I did that I think I now advise a lot of people to do, you can build up a business, and selling it is not the only option to capitalize on it. So I built businesses on top of a business. So once I got a profitable business that I could, with good people in it, I could then invest in other businesses with that profit, which is what I did. And then I could use the business that I had, in that case, a marketing and branding agency, to help the businesses I was investing in. So it's a bit like owning a construction company. Then you can build houses, right? I mean, is your business construction, or is your business owning houses? And I think for me, even the gardening company example, I learned from that business, and I made some money off it, and I took the money I made in that business to do another business. And so it's not just about building business to sell it. And one of the things I did at Fluid that I think was clever of me was to realize that I was not replaceable. And although I was a key reason of taking the business from 0 to 1, I'm not personally that excited about building businesses from 1 to 10, 10 being IPO, right? I like the 0 to 1. I like everyone saying this idea is not possible, it's not going to work. I love convincing people to join a company that doesn't have any, track record. I love selling the vision. I love making what's in my head become real in a physical format. And I enjoy that. But as soon as it gets to, a couple of hundred employees, I don't particularly enjoy it. And I could do it, but I always find it quite hard. So what I did at Fluid, which I think was clever, is I brought someone else in to run that company once I got it to a profitable state. And I think by doing that, I did 2 things. One, I didn't have to go to work every day anymore. and I would still have income and still have a reputation, which I think is more valuable than money. I had a successful business HQ'd in Hong Kong, and everybody in Hong Kong, you ask them about me, they know me, they know what I've done and what I've achieved. So even though I wasn't going into the office every day anymore, people still knew me, and I was making money, and I had a business. And with that business, I was able to leverage and get other businesses to invest in and so on. But I feel like, by bringing someone else in to run it, the person I brought in to run the business did a fantastic job, and they knew what a bigger business looked like, and they loved running a bigger business. And so when they came in, it was like a whole new lease of life. I moved myself from CEO of the company to chairman. That person comes in and runs it, and that freed me up to go and do something else, 0 to 1. And so, and I think when how the sale came about, again, we went. A lot of people did approach us over the years to buy the business. WPP, which is a big agency group, Ogilvy, did approach us, but we never felt like there was a good fit or it was quite the right time. But then PwC came along initially, and we talked to them about a partnership. So part of our model was we would work with other brands, like one of our clients was CNN. We go with CNN to see a brand and offer CNN plus Fluid services to that brand to help them market their business or launch a new product or whatever it may be. And my agency, Fluid, got the CNN aura projected on it because we were going in the room together with people like CNN. And we basically started doing something similar with PwC. And PwC worked with all the Fortune 500 companies. We all know PwC is $1 billion company, one of the 4 top accounts firms. And we will go with them to see clients. And then very quickly, PwC, who are very smart people, realized just how much money there was in partnering up and offering, not just account services, but then marketing and creative support in tangent with an accountant can see that by the numbers, but they wouldn't necessarily know what to do with that problem creatively to fix it. So by working with a creative agency, these Fortune 500 clients all wanted to do something. So that led to a partnership with PwC, and very quickly PwC said, why if we carry on down this road, we're going to make you $1 billion company. So how about we buy you? And that's how that conversation started. It was not about us selling the business. And initially when they said that, we're like, we're fine, we're building the business up and we don't want to sell it. And that helped in the negotiations, I think. But eventually the deal made sense. And I think that when it clicks, PwC had a great ethos about how they treat staff. Back to the point, one of the key elements of that business was how we treated our creative people. And they really had a vision and a network globally to expand the business. I don't want to be living on a plane before COVID or after COVID. I don't want to be living on a plane, and I didn't want to be living on a plane. I didn't want to open up 50 offices, which that business had the potential to do, and flying all over the world doing it. But PwC have 50 offices already. So for them to expand the business is easy. And for me or the team I brought in to run the business, to expand it to that scale would take decades. And so it just made sense at that point to sell it. But that was never the aim. I think that's the point. I don't ever build a business to sell it, which you might be very disappointed and waste years of your life building something you don't love.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic story. And I think it's kind of like this Silicon Valley like effect, right? It's like all the people there are glorifying raising capital and glorifying exits, and they're just trying to do that as much as they can. And it's not real business, and it's not like, to me, that's not how I want to build, business and do my life's work, right? I feel like that lacks purpose, and that lacks, actually enjoying the process of it. But I thought you brought up a couple other really interesting things there, being that you had the awareness to understand that you wouldn't enjoy running the company, and that didn't match your skill set. So you brought somebody else in to do that, right? And you could focus on the bigger picture and visionary thing. I think that's extremely important for other people to understand, and also consider in their own businesses if they would rather be doing a different type of work than they are currently, and delegating or hiring or partnering with someone to help actually do more of the day-to-day operations and things like that. I think that's a a key thing that you said there. And the other thing I thought was interesting too was the best time to sell a business is when you don't have to sell, right? So you guys were in a power position with PwC where it was like, hey, we don't have to sell. We have a great business going, but let's figure out a way to make this work. And, it was an easy, I guess you could call it collaboration, but it was a great fit, right? For both companies. So thanks for sharing that. I think that was really helpful. So now I'd like to let's shift over now to what you've been doing for the last several years on the investing side of things. You've invested in, I think, over 60 companies, 68 companies, something like that, which is incredible. So how did you make that transition? Why did you want to become an investor? And what do you look for? You mentioned some of this other stuff, but if you want to dive deeper into what are some of the things that you look for in founders or in companies that you want to invest in, and at what stage?
I think investing in startups, sometimes I feel like, when I look at the investment landscape and who's out there, that I'm a very small fish, I guess, in this space. But I find it a very fascinating pond. And I didn't get into investing in startups for any of the glamour that now seems to be attached to investing in these businesses. And I got into it purely by accident, I guess, alongside my passion, which was when I had Fluid, the agency business, a lot of companies would come to us and say, we've got this brilliant business idea, and we'd like your help. And I just love their energy, love their passion, and want to be involved. And then looking at my staff cost and my salary bills, and these startups just could not afford the services of my company. And it used to frustrate me because as much as I loved working with CNN and Estee Lauder and Credit Suisse and all these big brands, there was always a feeling that these weren't my tribe. My tribe were that 15-year-old me, someone who has the ability but just needs a bit of support, a bit of encouragement, a bit of advice. And so I started kind of, I guess, trying to figure out a way that I could help these folks and give them my business services without, going bankrupt, helping 50 startups and having no income. So I guess I basically split the business in two. I had Fluid, which was the service business that helped big brands primarily and with marketing and branding. And then I started a platform called Nest. And part of that platform makeup was that I'd say to these companies, look, I want to help you, but you know what? I'm going to pay you money to help you. So instead of, normally a consultant, you'd pay me money, right? But I'm going to pay you money. I'm going to give you money, and I'm going to take a bit of equity in your business, and then I'm going to give you help for free. And then I'm going to pay some of my own money to my own company, Fluid, to then also help you do these things that you want to do. And I didn't really frame it at that time as, angel investing. I just framed it as, and I'm back, this is maybe, 12 years ago, 10 years ago. And I didn't really, it wasn't really, in Asia, it wasn't called angel investing. This to me, it was just trying to make a deal with a company and a founder of a company that I really liked.
Yeah, and so more of like partnering.
Yeah, it was partnering. I was just hacking together a way of doing it. And one of the first investments I made was in the guys that did Rotten Tomatoes, Patrick Lee and those guys. And, I was just very excited to work with Patrick and work with that group of people. And I really enjoyed just, bringing my knowledge to the table, bringing the resources of my network to the table, of course, bringing my agency services to the table. And sure, yes, putting a bit of money into the business too. But we all know money is not really the most difficult thing as far as what businesses need. If you have clients, income, then often you don't even need money, other people's money. Anyway, the company should be self-sustained. And so anyway, the point is that I got into it by accident. And then as I made my first investment and learned the ropes and made some mistakes, I started then investing in others. And I tried a few different formulas. I mean, I used to invest in other people's businesses, but then a group of us used to come up with ideas. This is venture building model where, we have an idea and we say, right, here's the idea. We get it up and running. And then we'd find someone to come in and own it, literally own it and run it. So it was kind of a combination. And then slowly but surely, I basically realized that through my agency business, Fluid, we have a lot of corporate relationships, and these corporates are desperate for innovation. So I started meeting startups on one side with brilliant ideas, and then hearing through my agency business that these companies were desperate for more innovation. So we started matching up the corporations that were our clients at Fluid with the startups that were coming through our system at Nest. And we created by accident corporate accelerators in Asia. We were the first to do corporate accelerators in Asia. Techstars were the first company to do it in the world. And we were the second in the world to do it.
What year was that?
That was, I think, 2007.
Yeah, so way ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, accelerators are now. I've got issues with accelerators now.
Same,
but
yeah.
back then, to me, it was the beginnings of a kind of a brilliant way. And I really think people like Y Combinator are still doing a great job. But it was a way of bringing all these resources to bear on a startup. Mentorship, access to clients. So, for example, we got Nissan on board. And Nissan would help, an electric bike company. They would say, look, you've got an electric bike. We've got 4,000 showrooms. Let's put the electric bike in all 4,000 showrooms around the world. Let's, every time someone buys a car, include an electric bike. They could just do things at scale that the startups can't. I mean, I remember one time with a healthcare startup, we hooked them up with AIA. AIA, for those that don't know, the world's largest life insurance company. They go under lots of different brands in different parts of the world, but on average, just under the AIA brand, they have 92 million monthly paying customers. And suddenly we could get a little startup, if it had a product that would help people live longer, healthier lives. AIA was willing to promote that startup to their 90 odd plus million customers. Now, for a startup, that's just literally access money can't buy. That would be the money they raise from an investor might be what they spend on Facebook ads to try and reach a fraction of that number. So we basically created this system to bring corporations into the mix to try and help startups. And I just fell in love with the whole world. And I think ever since then, it's never been about owning equity in startups for me. It's always been about learning about the latest innovations, being a part of supporting the next generation of entrepreneurs, creating cool stuff. And people always ask me what's my criteria for investing, and I always give a strange answer. I always say I want it to be fun. If we lose all our money and we had a laugh along the way, then that's success for me. If I'm still friends with the founder at the end of the process, and we say, oh well, we tried, maybe we'll do something else together. But at the very least, we've had a life experience, right? And that's my criteria. It's got to be fun. And so it's got nothing to do with filling a market gap or being the next Facebook. It doesn't mean to say I don't want to be involved with businesses that are necessarily, doing amazing things and scaling, but it's not always about that. Certainly not for me.
Right. I like that a lot. Wow. Yeah. This is awesome. I'm enjoying this so much. I don't want it to end, but we are coming up on time here. So I do want to give you a chance to talk about what you're doing now. With all the stuff that's going on, from your social media to your podcast to the Purposeful Project. I know you're focused on helping 1 million people start companies, which definitely is right in line with our mission and everything. And I think we can definitely help you accomplish that too, easier and faster with our network. So definitely want to talk more about that. But feel free. I'd love to have you share a little bit more about what you're up to now, that project, and where people can find you, follow up with you if they're interested in getting in touch.
Sure. Well, anyone who wants to reach out to me can always just connect via my website, simonsquibb.com. Of course, you can also connect to me via the Purposeful Project and find out what we're doing to help people start and grow their businesses. But I think the reason, I guess, primarily I got into this was twofold. One, I read a headline that just in the UK alone, 1 million people will lose their job because of COVID. And so to me, this is a talented, hardworking workforce that shouldn't be unemployed. And so my mind, of course, jumps to, well, don't wait for a job, create one for yourself. Even if it's a small business, it doesn't have to be the next Facebook. And why have a lost generation like that? And I was reading about all the university students coming out of university expecting to get a job and won't get one. Again, I just think I don't want to waste a generation. And I was actually in semi-retirement. I kind of looked at it, I left school and started work at 15. So by rights, I'm okay to retire at 40. So I actually kind of retired at 40. I sold off Fluid, as I mentioned, sold off a lot of my other assets. And I basically said to my wife, I'm going to get fit and let's have a baby. And I got fit and we had a baby. And then I guess COVID came along, and I felt like I've got a skill set. I feel like quoting that movie, I've got a certain skill set, and that is how to build businesses, how to get into the mindset as an entrepreneur. And I felt it was my duty to come back into the workforce and help. And so, and I'm excited about building something for the first time in my life that isn't about just making money. I love the idea that, Fluid was, as I said earlier, about, helping people, but we got a fee for it. And then Nest was about helping people, but we got equity for it. And now I love this idea that, we don't need anything from anyone. We can just help you without any catch. People find it weird at first, and I can understand. But when people realize that free does have value, and you actually give value and there's no catch, it's wonderful, I think, for both sides of the equation. I always felt bad. There were so many people out there that didn't have a great idea. So therefore we couldn't help them because we couldn't take equity, or they didn't have a brilliant business, so couldn't afford our consultancy services. So what about helping those people that can't afford to get a business consultant, that can't afford to get a coach, that can't afford to get an MBA? What about helping those people? And so it excites me to be helping those people today. We are helping people too that have successful businesses, or businesses that could be more successful, because I think that's just as important. I want those people to continue to thrive and hire people and get us out of this economic mess we're in. But I also love the fact that, we can help someone that otherwise couldn't afford to hire a consultant and so on. And a big part of what we're doing, we have a podcast show. We interview the world's most successful entrepreneurs.
The Good Luck Club, right?
Good Luck Club. You can, if you want to listen in, it's goodluckpod.com. Of course, we're on Spotify, Apple Music, all the stations you'd expect. And you can, listen basically to some of the most amazing stories of what entrepreneurs have done. And I mentioned earlier, I've started 18 businesses and invested in 68 startups myself. Every time I sit down with these entrepreneurs, I learn something. This week's entrepreneur, William Reeves, he shared a story. He built a platform called, let me get this right so I say the name right. I think it's Love Movies. I want to make sure I get the name right. But he sold it to Amazon for £200 million. And so, and he talks about that story and that process, but he's not stopping. And this is the thing I love. But he shares his whole story. And I learned so many things from interviewing him. No matter the people listening in maybe don't have the same experience as me, I'm learning stuff from it. And what it is for me is mentorship at scale. These people do not have time necessarily to mentor people out there, and everyone should have a mentor. But by listening to their podcast for an hour, you get their mentorship. And so for me, it was always solving that problem. How can you give mentorship to people that at scale? How can you give information to people at scale from people that are so busy they don't have time to meet 10 people a week, 15 people a week, no matter 1 million people a week? And I felt like a podcast platform, as we created, has kind of ticked that box slowly but surely. And I'm very proud. We were recently voted one of the world's top 20 podcasts. Joe Rogan is number 6. We slipped in there at number 20, so we're just about making it. But I'm pretty proud that we've managed to build a platform that helps so many people. We get so many amazing messages about the insights that our guests have shared with them that change their lives or change the trajectory of their businesses. And so that's what we're doing today. We have a podcast show. We do webinars every week where people can come and learn for free how to start a business, how to grow a business. As I mentioned at the beginning, I think off camera for you guys listening on your channel, about how we've just built videos, helping people sell, helping people market their businesses, helping people understand social media, helping people understand how to get partnerships and co-founders and investors and starting businesses without money. All of this content that we're producing every week for free to try and help people, frankly, have no excuses.
Yeah, it's incredible. And, for people who aren't following you on social media too, you're putting out, if not all the content, most of the content on there too, that people can follow along on TikTok and Instagram and everything as well. And I would encourage everyone to listen to that. And, I love it because you're creating access to people who may not have that. And that's right in line with our whole focus is creating a platform and an app that people can we can make entrepreneurship accessible to anyone for free as long as they have access to the internet. And that's huge. I love everything that you're doing. As we wrap up, any final piece of advice or final thoughts that you'd like to share for the entrepreneurs listening?
I guess as my Instagram quotes, which is, 1 + 1 = 11. Don't underestimate partnerships. I mean, Elon Musk teamed up with the PayPal people, Peter Thiel and those guys. He didn't invent PayPal. And so, teaming up with people is incredibly powerful. When you're building a business, think about how you can buy time, don't sell time. I think it's completely underrated, that way of thinking. I also think a lot of people struggle with managing people. So I always say manage people, not purpose. I manage purpose, not people. And you will have, then you hire around purpose and you won't have to manage anyone. They'll be self-motivated. So they're probably my parting words. And if you know anyone that needs help starting a business, please share our channels with them.
I absolutely love that. That's a great way to end things. Simon, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Entrepreneur Show. If you'd like to connect and network with other like-minded people, entrepreneurs, investors, freelancers, and startups, check out our app or go to our website, joinentre.com. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. If there's anything that we can do to help you, please reach out to us and let us know.